BFM 89.9. Good morning. I'm Roshan and you're listening to Ringgit and Cents, the show that's all about personal finance. In the past, women weren't as involved in investing as they are today. What has changed and what's behind that? To help me explore this, I have in the studio with me Linnet Lee, CEO of the Financial Planning Association of Malaysia, FPAM, and Linnet Wai Ken, Malaysia Country Manager for Robo-Advisory Stash Your Way. Welcome to the show.
Morning, Linnet. Morning, Roshan.
Morning. Thank you for having us.
So today's conversation, I think we've got a lot of stats to see the trend that has changed. Linnet, could you just set the scene for us? What has changed in terms of women and investment in the last 10, 20, 30 years?
Well, historically, there were figures to show that women are very good at savings, but they're not very good at investing. But if you look at the role that women used to play traditionally, they were the homemakers. And I think all of us know that homemakers, they work 24/7. They don't have time. And also traditionally, women never studied very high. They are sort of like, limited to the scope of education is so specific. Today, things have changed. Women are more empowered. They have their own money and they are now having access to a lot of information thanks to Mr. Google and online. So looking at that, we would see that women are now coming out and investing more. And I think, Wai Ken, you have some figures you wanted to share from your side?
Yeah, that's right. I think if we look at the big picture, I think behaviorally it shows that Asian women actually differ a lot of their financial decisions to their spouse or their partners. In Hong Kong and Singapore, for example, as a proxy, over 70% of women actually don't make the financial decisions. They actually hand it off to their husbands or their partners. So we feel that this is a cultural and a behavioral trend, and it comes from the reasons that Linnet mentioned, but also some of their internal reasons were they think that spouses know more about finance. They think that because their partners earn more than them, that the partners should actually manage the money. But also, it also comes with a lot of convenience, right? The man focuses on the career and money, whereas the women focus on the kids and the household. So there's also very practical reasons. But as Linnet mentioned, and anecdotally also as someone in the 30s, we see that these things are changing.
And, when you hear that kind of delineation of duties, right, to me, the first thing I think about is concentration risk.
Yes.
Now, all that risk is in the hands of the spouse in this situation. And as we've seen with cases of divorce or any sort of death, when there's too much concentration in one hand, it becomes very complicated.
There was this case of this woman. She studied, she's a degree holder, very good, but she married into a family where they are very property-based. And when her husband passed away prematurely, he has set her up and for her and her children for good. There were properties that they could actually live off. But unfortunately, because she does not have investment knowledge, and I always believe that women are not less knowledgeable, it's just they do not have the opportunity those days. So she did not have investment knowledge, and what happened was then she fell into a lot of I would call scams. And how does it work is this group of people, they know that she has this group of properties. They come around offering her a lot of investment schemes and encouraging her to take a loan on the property so that they can free the money to go and do investments. When she couldn't pay her for the schemes that doesn't work, what happened is the bank then forecloses her property, and she loses her property and she's got nothing left. So what is the benefit to the scammers? They get to buy the property at a cheaper rate. And the banks make money because they auction off her property and they get paid back. So they've got money to roll. So this is a situation which is not favorable if you don't know anything about investment.
Yeah, and then that comes down to financial education, right? It comes back to financial literacy, exposure, but being in the know of all these complexities. It's like if you gave money to a child and who had no idea how to spend that, they would just throw the money away. Quite literally, they could be throwing the money away. So, Linnet, what are you seeing? What has changed today in terms of the involvement of women in investing today?
Well, for one, as I said, women are moving up in the career. They are holding higher position. They know how to make informed decisions. They know where to find the information. On top of that, there's also a lot of conveniences now. You can hire a maid. You can hire a driver. So it frees the woman. Things that they traditionally used to do, they outsource it. So when they outsource it, they're able to learn. And when they learn, they know better, they will be able to. And if you look at statistics, a lot of women are doing need-based investing. That's the major difference that we see between men and women. They don't speculate, they don't trade. Maybe the fact that by virtue of the fact that they're a bit more risk averse, they tend to do that. And they tend to listen to their financial advisors and planners as well.
Yeah, I remember reading this stat. And over the long run, female fund managers did better than their male counterparts. But in the short run, the male counterparts did better because they're more risk on. So it really depends on what your term is in your goal.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that men and women have different styles of investing, especially when it comes to the reasons why you're investing. In the retail space, for example, because we are a tech platform, we actually can see these behaviors very, very clearly. I think some of the things we talked about, women being more intentional about investing. Actually, we do see that 40% of women on our platform actually set up investment goals, as opposed to only less than 30% of men who actually start off with investment goals. So that initial mindset of being a long-term and medium-term investor makes them much more calm in the face of a storm. We also saw 3 market corrections last year where markets fell almost around 20%. And we found that 25 to 30% of women actually sell less than men. So they stay put in tough times.
Now, that's really interesting, Wai Ken. Could you what else are you seeing on your platform, the differences between men and women? Because this is fascinating.
Yeah, so in terms of absolute numbers, we are seeing more men than women actually investing, which was why we dug deeper into this question to begin with, and we started conversations with Linnet and things like that. So we wanted to grow the piece of the pie. We wanted to get more women to start investing. And we found out that actually it's about the conversation starter. It's not about the how the platform looks, making it pink and all the superficial things. It's about how you start a conversation. Are you saving for your kids' education? Are you saving for an investment property? Are you investing for a lovely holiday with your spouse, right? It's how you start a conversation. Another myth that I like to bust is also the fact that women are more conservative than men. I think in general, those myths kind of perpetuate themselves. But actually on our platform, we see the stats that women tend to invest in portfolios that are 65% equities, whereas men invest in portfolios that are 70% equities. So that 5% difference is not material, and we actually see it's actually not the flip side, right? Like 70-30 versus 30-70. And we find that women do take risk, but they're more intentional about that risk. So they're better investors overall.
Yeah, so what Ken said there is very interesting, right? Are you seeing the same thing on your side in terms of financial planning?
Yes, we do. In fact, we find that women tend to talk to their financial planners more, and they ask more questions. The outcome that we see is, and statistics have shown, is they trade less, but they trade smarter. They are goal-based. Second, they buy, and then, as Wai Ken rightly say, they hold their nerves. They don't sell. And I'm one of them as well. People ask me to sell, and I don't sell. And when the market bounce up, we do better. Second, they're not afraid to ask for help. I think that's very important. That comes back to why they talk to their financial advisors, they talk to their financial planners. And also, more importantly is, because time is of the essence, they use a lot of technology to help them. And having platforms like Fund Supermart, Stashaway, even Rakuten, they have time. They can trade on demand. They can invest on demand.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit. You're tuned into Ringgit and Cents, the show that's all about personal finance. Stay tuned. BFM 89.9, thanks for staying with us here on Ringgit and Cents, the show that's all about personal finance. I'm speaking to Linnet Lee, CEO of the Financial Planning Association of Malaysia, otherwise known as FPAM, and Wai Ken, Malaysia Country Manager for Robo-Advisory Stashaway. Linnet, just a little while ago, we were talking about how convenience has really played a role here in terms of helping women get into investing. And fintech has been a big part of that, and the internet for that matter. What else are you seeing here?
Well, I'm seeing women taking a bigger interest in family finances, and I think that's very important because I've seen women who run chain of businesses, and when their spouse dies prematurely, they get stuck. So I think these are wake-up calls. These cases are wake-up calls for women, and they realize that they have to take charge of their life. And I think recently Bursa had an event where Hannah Yo had a clarion call to women to do more investing so that they can be financially stable. She even said that it helps to make up for the salary differences because investing, you are in control and you can earn as much as you want to. So I think that that's very important. These are things that helps women to be more, empower women more in terms of investment.
What specific advice would you have for women who are investing right now, who are just starting especially?
Well, first and foremost, and I can't say this often enough, you must know what are your risk profile, how much risk you can take, your duration that you are going to invest for the goals that you want to achieve, how much more gap you need to fill. And once you have all that in place, investing, you'll be more focused and you'll be able to achieve what you want. And be prepared to hang on to your nerves some more. I think that's very important.
Ken, what about you? What are you seeing on your platform? What advice do you have?
I think from the conversation so far, it seems like two things remain clear, right? The first thing is that you have to have the right behavior regardless of whether you're a man or a lady. And then the second thing is that tech is a great empowering tool to everyone. But I think tools and tech alone is not enough. It's how you use it and what values it actually brings to your life and your investment goals. So in terms of tech, I think overall platforms reducing the cost of investment and the barriers to entry, not having to walk into a branch or see an agent, I think all these things are great for Malaysians. And also the tools that come with the platforms to help you remain calm, set your goals for the medium and long term, actually help you make good decisions, right? It's about good product packaging. If you package something that's risky, ultimately people will trade and play with it and ultimately not reach their investment goals. But if it's set right in terms of the risk profile from the beginning, then your investing journey is a lot more smoother, a lot more predictable.
And also one more thing, because there's the doom and gloom saying that the next 2 years is going to be difficult and all that, and people tend to panic. So my advice is, if you need to, talk to a licensed financial planner. Make sure that you bounce ideas of them in terms of investment schemes that are presented to you. That's very important because when times are bad, there will be a lot of scams coming up and they look very attractive because they were promised to outdo the stock market and whatever. So please be very careful. Sometimes you need a second opinion. Please seek one. It's cheaper to pay for a licensed financial planner than to pay for a financial mistake.
Yeah, I think this also, coming back to the topic overall, which is why more women should invest, I think there's also a real need for security and safety. Being in charge of your finances is very, very empowering. And ultimately, having someone along the way to hold your hand, like a licensed financial planner or good tools that you've used and integrated into your lives, ultimately helps you make good decisions. I don't think it's something that you have to do alone.
And this applies to both men and women, right? Because men shouldn't think that they know everything and not be ashamed of seeking advice, essentially. There is no shame in it, and also there's no harm in asking for advice. It's, again, cheaper to go and ask for advice than to go and make a huge mistake.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like last time men wouldn't ask for directions on the road. So with tech, with the GPS, now you don't need to ask for anyone for help on the road.
So we would encourage those bodies who are in the financial education network and those that are private also to put out this message out to people to be very careful.
Yeah, and for my personal note, it's the concentration risk. End of the day, no one partner in a relationship should have all the financial power. I think that's very risky. I mean, we all want to believe that our relationships last forever, but divorce stats are there, and no one ever thinks they're going to split up. But at the end of the day, the financial rule of life is to diversify your risk. Well, this is a risk that you should probably diversify as well.
Yeah, I think in terms of making it more accessible, right? It's if you have a partner or spouse, try and manage your finances together.
Yes.
That way you bounce ideas off each other, and it's actually a very fun exercise because you slowly see yourselves reach your financial goals, be more empowered as a family. I really like those things, because it helps reinforce the fact that you shouldn't do it alone, and you should, have fun along the way, right? That's what a healthy marriage is about, being inclusive of everything, including the finances. No financial infidelity is happening here.
Totally agreed there. Linnet, what advice would you give to couples, when it comes to talking about finances? Because this can be tricky.
Yes, sensitive sometimes. Well, I will continue to say that for men, please involve your women in your personal finances, investment especially. And if for some reason, and I would be the first to admit, sometimes there are women who don't have time or may not be interested in, at least let them know who to go to and where to find things. I think that is the basic they must have with their wives. And for women, when your husband start talking to you about finances, please sit down and listen. Listen for your own sake and for the sake of your children as well. Because should anything happen to them, at least you know how to navigate and how to also go and seek the right financial planner to help you. I'm sorry, I have to say that.
No, it is completely valid.
Yes.
Ken, how about you? What advice do you have in this regard?
Yeah, so I myself, I'm happily married, and I think me and my wife, we understand that we have different strengths, and that we inherit different personal finance habits from our parents, right? So she's actually a really good saver, and she tracks her expenses very, very well, whereas I don't track my expenses, but I tend to know a bit more about investing. And in terms of earning power, actually, she earns a little bit more than me, which is not the traditional case in a lot of households. So actually, there's an increased need for us to plan our finances together. And because of that, I think overall we feel more secure when we see both our assets on the plan together, and we know where we want to head to. So if anything, I would also say that have the arrangement that causes the least amount of stress. So when it comes to, for example, joint accounts, what should I do? I know the traditional joke is that for the women, it's like, my money is my money and my husband's money is my money as well. But I think in this day and age, it's whatever causes the least stress. Either you have separate accounts with complete trust, or you have joint accounts where you contribute some money for the household and the kids, or you contribute a certain percentage if you earn different incomes.
Yeah, it
so whatever
can be a
causes.
hybrid also.
Yeah, exactly. If your kids see you and your spouse actually planning your finances together, they will
learn that.
They will learn and
Yes.
understand that it should be a joint thing and not just a guy thing, not just a woman thing. And ultimately, I think, today is just a conversation starter. It's not the silver bullet to end all gender inequality, right? But we should integrate it more into our lives.
Yes, and I would also encourage women to take more control of their personal finances. I agree with you. I never talk about divorce. Divorce was one of the reasons why I understand investment better, because I left it to my ex-spouse at that time. And what happened was, when I found out what he was doing, I was scared, because we were two different animals, so we would have invested differently. But I think don't take that painful path. Go and learn for yourself and pick it up. It is actually beneficial for you on the long term.
On that note, I'd like to thank both of you for joining me today. There's a lot to unpack and take away from this conversation, and I hope everyone learns something from this. I was speaking to Linnet Lee, CEO of the Financial Planning Association of Malaysia, otherwise known as FPAM, and Wong Wai Ken, the Malaysia Country Manager for Robo-Advisory Stash Away. This was Ringgit and Cents, the show that's all about personal finance. I'm Roshan signing off for The Morning Run, BFM 89.9.